What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Changeover podcast. I'm here to introduce today the first episode of the Coaches Corner, where we get to pick the minds of some of the best coaches in the game. Our first guest on the Coaches Corner is a four-time ATP winner and an Olympic bronze medalist. He's Taylor Dent. Evan, AJ, Justin, and I were all lucky enough to work with Taylor in our years living in Texas. So it was always in the back of our mind as one of the coaches to have on the program. So thank you to Taylor for coming on. Enjoy the episode, and if you have any questions for us, please send them in, comment in the YouTube down below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy the episode. Taylor, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. How are things at the Birch? What's it been like?
It's as you guys know, it's kind of the same old thing. For me personally, the biggest thing is my time investment going into Liam's tennis. My second son, he's 11 years old, has been just continually increasing, and that's kind of, I guess, the new thing. Other than that, I'm just helping the kids that come through the academy. Always get a couple of pros, either local or just stopping through, that come by, and just try to give as much. I don't know. I guess I feel like my role is more of just a second opinion. Kind of consulting.
Do you what's the difference that, in your opinion, that you've had from coaching the different levels? So whether that's juniors to the pros to the club members, like how do you separate I guess your coaching style to accommodate for the goals of the session?
Well, I think you just said it. I think it just depends on what the goals are. And I think that makes it really hard on me if the goals are not clear. Like we talk about, I work with one group of ladies at the club, and their goal is really just to kind of climb the rankings as much as they can with the game that they have and the partners that they have. So we talk about sneaky little tactics that just, we're not really working on a profound change in their game. We're just working on maximizing the tools that they have and putting them in positions on the court that they get to play with their best strokes as often as possible. So
can you give us an example of one of the tactics?
Yeah, so it's kind of cheeky.
The playbook's getting out of
Yeah.
The other ladies don't like it much. So I'm very big for those guys. Put their forehands in the middle of the court as much as possible, because I hope I'm not saying this. I don't mean this to be in a negative way. It's just, at that level, the skill to get the ball outside of the middle of the court is not very good. So when we create like little formations that start the point where they are always putting their forehands in the middle of the court, man, that makes poaching so much easier. That makes putting those high floaty balls away so much easier than watching them kind of struggle with the backhand a little bit. Also, another tactic is pairings. In some of these teams, you have ladies that love playing at the net, and they just are all over the place going kamikaze style. They need someone who doesn't mind being at the baseline retrieving. So just kind of putting those patterns together. So it's simple stuff like that I think the ladies just, once you explain it to them and just say, look, we're just trying to maximize the situation here. We're not trying to get you to serve like Nick Kyrgios. We're just trying to use the tools we got. So I feel like, getting back to your point, working with anybody, I feel like is relatively comfortable for me if there's a clear defined goal. If the goal is all over the place, then I don't like it so much, because then I don't really know kind of where we need to invest our time. If we're talking about working with a kid that wants to be on his high school tennis team, out here, that just means let's get a little faster. Let's be consistent. Let's make sure we're not double faulting, and boom, we're there. If we're talking about, Liam, my son, he says he wants to win Grand Slams. I turn on the TV. I show him how Djokovic is playing, how Alcaraz is playing. I'm like, these are the guys you want to beat. So you're going to have to absolutely be crushing the ball and being a physical beast. So that just brings a different challenge to the table.
And how is it for him being so young and having to, what's his mindset like towards playing this kind of way? Because I'm sure at times it's not that easy for him to play this style of tennis or try to play this style of tennis all the time.
Yeah, I think that question is huge, and he does a good job so far. I'm not going to say that he hasn't struggled in the past or he won't struggle in the future, but he works with this other young boy, spends a lot of time with him, and the other boy has a tough time with playing so aggressive and losing or missing so many shots. And I try to come at it a few different ways. And I asked this other young boy, I said, so what's your confidence level going into a match? And, predictably, he would answer like the rest of us, like 4 out of 10, not really sure how this is going to go, And I asked Liam, because Liam was standing right there, and Liam actually answered the question correctly. He said, well, I don't understand the question. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you're asking me my confidence in doing what I'm supposed to do, which is I'm going to fight hard and I'm going to play the right way, my confidence level is a 10. Like I'm going to do those things. There's no question about it. But if you ask me my confidence level in winning the match, he's like, I don't know, a 0, like almost irrelevant. And that's kind of what Liam and I talk about all the time is, everybody gets attracted to playing well. Everybody gets attracted to focusing on winning. And those are really toxic thoughts if you let that consume your brain. If you go out there and you're focused on competing, if you're focused on playing the right way for you, whatever that is, then you can rest easy and you're giving yourself the best chance to play well. You're giving yourself the best chance to win. And you can kind of have a confident peace, like an intense mindset, but a calm emotional state, which is kind of what you go for as an athlete, I would assume, for all sports.
Yeah, true. Was there a period in your career that you felt like you were more inclined to be a coach after your career and be able to share what you've learned with other people?
Or
was it always in the plans, like you just figured that you would coach after your career?
I figured that it was always a possibility. I didn't really look forward to it or look down on it or anything like that. I just, it wasn't really something I thought about until I started commentating, and everybody who heard me commentate said that, I have good information. I have a different kind of take on when I watch matches and all this sort of stuff. And then I gave a few lessons and I guess explaining things from a unique background, because I grew up with, in my opinion, one of the greatest tennis coaches, around, with my dad. So I've heard everything he's had to say, and I've grown up around other great tennis coaches as well. So, it kind of just made me think like, well, with that kind of experience, it makes sense that I would, take advantage of that. So
how do you think what you learned from Phil influence you as a coach? Like, are there any takeaways from his coaching style or his philosophies on the game?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And I think that, it just kind of makes me appreciate that there are different coaching styles. And you guys know as well as I do, like if you're out here, my dad is very much about what the stroke looks like, stroke production. He wants the stroke to look appropriate, and that's great. Jenny, my wife, she's very much about body position, very much about footwork. I tend to be more about, I don't care if your forehand looks like Tiafoe's or Jack Sock's. I just want a good ball. Give me a good ball. Be able to put it where it needs to go, and tactically making sure you're making the kind of efficient decisions tactically. If we're talking about higher level tennis and stuff like that. So I guess growing up around my dad, I have a tough time thinking that any coach is really wrong. I've just seen too many coaches do good things. I come back to the same thing. Well, what's the goal? What's the coach's goal? What's the player's goal for this scenario? And then, if that decision lines up with that goal, then it's right. And the other thing is, you're never going to get two coaches that agree. It's like, talking to your best friend. You're not going to agree on everything. I've seen you and Justin to have a disagreement once or twice.
It gets a little heated from time to time.
Man, you got me off my game here with that comment. Because do you remember when what was the argument that we had over the Coke van? Do you remember this?
No,
do you remember, Justin?
This man thought that a Coca-Cola truck was bringing random supplies.
Yes. I do remember.
Like you can rent a Coke truck.
I remember us arguing about this, and you got uncomfortable and you left, Taylor. Do you remember that?
Probably one of many times. I'm like, okay, I'm not really. The volume is too much for me. We'll see you guys later.
That's funny. All right, let's move to this. So, how did you go about goal setting? Because I remember when I had surgery, I read the book It Takes What It Takes with Trevor Moawad. And then we also did some work with Chad as well on goal setting and visualization, that sort of stuff. So what's your experience with goal setting, and how did you go about it, I guess, in your playing career and now as a coach?
I think work backwards. Get the dream, right? Get the big dream that gets you excited. And I think it's important that the dream gets you excited, because when you're doing the day-to-day grind of the smaller goals, it's not fun. It's work. It's a job. And so you need that exciting dream to kind of inspire you through those rough times, either emotionally or physically, right? So I think you work backwards. You start with the dream, and then you kind of break it down. Well, to get there, I need this, I need this, I need this. And then I think I had great experience coming back from my surgeries, when the goals were actually small, and it made sense, because when I was in bed for a while, I started playing these computer games, and basically the way they do these achievements is they're very attainable small achievements, and there's a psychological benefit to that. Like your brain releases endorphins when you feel like you've accomplished something. So when I was coming back from my surgeries, I set the goal of just walking down the street and back, and it was an easy goal. It was achievable. And, from there, you just kind of build confidence. And I would just say, make the goal easy. That's what I would say. And then set the next one and make it easy, make it achievable, because bottom line is your body responds well to success. Your mind responds well to success. So just kind of almost guarantee that success. So coming out and saying my goal is to play well today, that's scary. You can't control that. That you're not guaranteed to play well today, no matter how mentally focused you are, no matter how well you prepare. But maybe you can say the goal is, man, I just want to work hard for 30 minutes. That's all I want. That's doable, and you can feel good about that. And so I would take that concept and apply it to whatever we're talking about.
And like, once you got to walking and playing and back into tournaments, I'm sure you had big goals of eventually getting back into the top 20, maybe top 10, maybe winning a slam. How did you progress those achievement goals? Or was it always a matter of what I can control myself?
It was always coming back to what I can control myself, for sure.
Okay.
I believe that basically, if, let's just say, and I'm not saying I was right in this, there were things that I wish I pursued in my tennis that were different than what I did pursue, but let's just assume I was kind of on the right track. Is when I came back, I believed that I could not serve and volley anymore on my second serve. My first serve, the percentage needed to be higher, but my win percentage on my first serve was one of the best in the world. So I was content to serve and volley off my first serve. I knew that I needed to stay back on my second serve. So I'm like, okay, well, so I still need to come in on my second serve. So I need to create some patterns that are just going to cover up my flaws from the baseline and get me to come to the net. And so what I would do is, the small goal there would be to spend X amount of time on those patterns, then go out, try them in a practice set, try them in a tournament, and get some kind of real data and say, okay, these patterns do work. I just need to get better at them. So that means let's just spend more time on these things. And as you guys know, you guys have played enough tennis, is that, improvement is not a mystery. It's just spending time doing things in a certain way, in the right way, and you'll improve. I mean, there's no coincidence that the more you do something, the better you get.
Can you give an example of like what you described about your pattern to cover up a certain flaw in your game? Can you give an example of like the second serve play that you would do, or something like that?
Yeah, so one of the patterns that I used to set up a ton from the baseline when I got stuck at the baseline was, I used to slice my backhand a ton. I liked my backhand topspin, but I sliced my backhand a lot. I felt like I could hit it. So anyway, my forehand was rough. Like, my forehand was the whole reason why I served and volleyed. I either hit it pancake flat and Mach 5, and I would make 20% of those, or I would roll it with spin. I couldn't get that ball that Federer gets, or Nadal or those guys got, where it was driving and spinning. My favorite pattern to set up, because people would just kind of pick on my backhand because it was a slice, or if they hit to my forehand, I'd roll it just nice and slow, high head, not even heavy too, just high blooper
High.
down the line. I wish it was high heavy. High little
High
blooper down
slow
the
is
line.
hilarious. High slow against
And
Nadal down the line is not going to work sometimes.
maybe not against that. Maybe not against that. But I would try to entice them to come cross court to my backhand, and then my backhand I would try to really hit a pretty driving slice down the line. And two things would happen from there. Either they would go cross court, which is going to happen 80% of the time, and typically they're going to try and find an angle, keeping it low and short wide. So I'm cheating on that. I'm just getting ready to just sprint up there, cut off the angle, and shove that up the line and just follow that in. And so that was kind of the play that I liked setting up the most. And if they did take that slice back down the line, I would just, I would either, if they didn't hit it good enough, I would just try to go back down the line. I'm just trying to bait them into that forehand cross court so I can shove it down the line and come in. So that was one of my good successful plays. But as forehands got better, that play worked less and less.
Okay. And do you think? Sorry, go on, Justin. Go on.
So when it comes to patterns, were you big on trying to be tactical in a match in terms of exploiting somebody's weakness, or you just wanted to play the patterns that you liked as much as you could?
Yes, to both. So okay. one of the things that just kind of changed my perspective on playing opponents' weaknesses and this stuff is I remember I was playing a match against Guillermo Coria when he was like 4 in the world at Miami. I think you guys have probably heard the story. And it was while it was Miami was being played at Key Biscayne, which was USTA headquarters. And I was one of the kids coming up that was supposed to be doing well. And so I'm walking around, and everybody was so nice and giving me their input on how I should tactically play this match. Just
so nice.
They were very nice, and I couldn't go 10 steps without a new take.
So generous.
I think you told us that the better you get, the more coaching you will receive.
Absolutely. Like at one stage, I was the best serve and volleyer in the world, and I'm getting told by everybody how to serve volley. I thought that was ironic, but it's just the truth. It's the truth, and I think people come from a good place, and so you just you accept it and move on. So I'm getting ready to play Guillermo Coria. I got so overwhelmed with all these all this advice I was getting. I said, forget it. I'm just going to go play my game, because my game did not match up well against this guy. I love to come in and attack the backhand. And at this stage, he had the second or third best backhand on tour behind like Hewitt and Agassi. So it doesn't look good. And I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to go attack the backhand, and I'm going to adjust if I have to. And sure enough, I went out there, and he had a bad day with his backhand. And I think I won like 4-2. Like, it was not a close match. And so that's where I think that you start the matches with your strengths. And part of the good thing about being a tennis player and your responsibility is you got to think on the fly out there. If things aren't working, then you need to make little adjustments that either highlight your strengths better or highlight their weaknesses more.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything that you would have done differently like when you were a player, like in your preparations or in your development, and then also as a coach? Like, do you think there's anything that you I don't want to say regret, but more like learn from and would do differently, or maybe you already implemented it differently into your coaching?
I would say as a player, I wish that I would have understood where the game was going a little bit more than what I did when I was younger. That's one. Obviously, the game went to a lot more spin than I believed when I was younger. So that's why I hit my forehand so flat. And that, like I said, that forehand really limited me substantially. I don't think with a forehand, I don't think I would have been a Grand Slam champion. But, going from 4th round of slams, I think I would have gotten to quarters, maybe some semis. I needed to return differently. So from a player, that was one standpoint. Another standpoint was I wish I would have just been a little bit more open to changing things. I knew that I needed to do things differently, but I thought that if I just worked on them hard enough, they'd get better. And that is true to a certain degree, but shots, if you hit them a certain way, they have limitations. There's just no getting around it. So I wish I would have just been a little bit more courageous. I think it came from a place of fear that I didn't want to make changes because I had a certain amount of success a certain way.
But that's still isn't that also a positive in a way? That a lot of from my experience, at least talking to a lot of players and being around a lot of good players, like I feel like the better players are extremely stubborn in many ways. So in a way, that being stubborn is a
Yeah.
positive as well, right?
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, if you're stubborn in a way that helps you, that's great. You know what I mean? Or I should say, even in a way that doesn't hurt you so badly, that's great. That's awesome. But if you're stubborn in a way that it actually hurts you, then not good. You know,
Yeah.
So I would
Maybe
just
because
say
of what
that.
you said, like the source of it, like you said, out of fear. Like maybe it's the source of the stubbornness. Like maybe you
Yeah.
in that scenario, because I'm sure in many ways you were very stubborn and it was very positive for you too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, 100% for sure. Like I said, I was just stubborn the wrong way for the wrong reason on my forehand. You know,
Okay.
with other things, I thought, again, stubbornness. But again, most athletes are stubborn. So you have to kind of battle that. And the idea is you just have to make sure that you're being stubborn about the good things. And sometimes, athletes can get blinded, So,
Yeah. Sorry,
as a coach,
yeah, there you go.
no, yeah. So as a coach, what I've learned, I'd say the toughest thing for me as a coach is I love I love the tennis that I couldn't play. I love watching Djokovic play. I love watching Alcaraz play. I'm highly passionate about that brand of tennis. And sometimes that's not the product that some of the customers want, and I get that, but they will say it is, and then the the sacrifice to play that type of tennis is exceptional, and there's not a whole lot of people, there's not a huge percentage of people that are willing to pay that cost, and I think one of the regrets that I have as a coach is I've tried to teach too many of the people that come to me kind of how to hit a ball like that, how to play tennis like that, and it really does take a huge time investment to be able to pull that off. I mean, it's a high skill thing. It's not an easy thing, and I sometimes just even get stuck in this place of, well, people come to me for my experience and my expertise at that level. You don't need me to teach you how to win a high school match. There's plenty of great coaches, within 3, 4, 5 minutes that can do that for you. And I find I catch myself in that kind of position where it's like, well, they're asking me to teach them how to do it like, this person, and I can certainly show them that, but are they really going to invest the time to make that beneficial? I find the answer more often than not is no. And so I don't know if that's a regret or just something that I'm kind of living out now. Like I get caught straddling that line a lot.
I feel like it's part of what we talked about at the beginning, like adjusting the goals for the different levels and different groups and whatnot. So, but I feel like from our conversations over the last few years, it sounds like something that you've been working on adjusting to and that sort of stuff.
I try to warn people. I had a young girl, 9 years old, and this girl's talented, and the father says, I want her to learn how to play offensive tennis. And you guys could only imagine how that makes me feel. Like that gets me going. Like my engines are revved up, ready to go. Let's rip some balls, But I'm learning that it's like, okay, just understand this is the hard road which you're going for. I was just talking with my dad this morning when I was working with Liam. And it's just such a bummer how many shots you have to have if you want to play offensive tennis, and we're just going through all the different shots that you have. Whereas if you want to just be a solid player, you got to have some sacrifice to be a great athlete. But after that, you're kind of talking about your forehand and your backhand need to be solid, and everything else needs to be okay. And so it's just like I said, I think I've learned my lesson that I warned the parents, like the time commitment has to be exceptional and the courage to miss has to be exceptional to play that offensive tennis.
Yeah. I heard I think there was what was it, Alcaraz's match that he lost in the Open, what was it, the semis? I think Ferrer was telling him a lot about being brave, so it goes exactly to what you're saying. Like he likes to play that brand of tennis, and Ferrer was telling him like to be brave, like and on these balls, like be brave in these points.
Yeah, and that's not saying like missing can't be the worst thing. If missing's the worst thing that can happen out there, then how can you be brave? How can you go for your shots and be okay with it? And I think that's a huge part of that brand of tennis. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
brand of tennis, you have to be brave, because if I was telling you, just talking about Liam today, it's just like, man, if you want to beat Alcaraz, you're going to have to do massive damage, because if you don't do damage to him, what's he going to do to you? He's going to beat you up. He's going to bully you around. So you have to be brave to do that damage. You have to be willing to miss.
And to wrap it up, so we discussed about you wish you had an idea where the game was going when you were a player. So what about now? Where do you see the game going in the next few years? Do you have any idea?
I'd say, I have some strengths as a coach or as a person. This is not one of them. I do not do a good job of seeing where the game is going or playing that game. I don't even like the conversation that much. Okay. I just would say this is, if we go off of what history has shown, the game is not the game in the sense of the surfaces, or it's not going towards serve and volley that much. It's not going towards a flatter ball. It's not going towards faster surfaces. Now the guys are hitting the shots faster, but it's with a ton of spin. I mean, the amount of spin these guys are generating, it's crazy. The game is not going towards, I'm going to hit through the opponent as hard as I can. It's kind of hitting away from the opponent, generating weak balls. The only caveat I put in that is, with how far back guys are returning now, it does bring in serving and volleying a lot more. Like you see Alcaraz, normally he beats up Medvedev because Medvedev's standing so far back, and he can hit the serve wide, come in and clean up a nice easy volley. Normally that didn't happen, obviously, this US Open. So that's interesting to see that happen.
You see, what was your record for fastest serve? Wasn't it 149?
No, that was 149 was the French. He broke my record at the US Open. My record at the US Open was 147.
Okay. I think within a few serves, he hit one at 147 and two at 149.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Clock was broken.
Yeah. That's fast. That's moving.
Anyway, anything else we should cover before we roll? Do you have anything to add, Taylor? Any questions? Anything you would like to say?
No, just it's good to see you guys. I'm glad you guys are doing good.
That's nice. We need to take a visit. Come see everybody.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, Taylor. We appreciate the time. Thanks for showing. I guess this is the first episode, like I said, of this segment of our podcast. So it was a pleasure, and we're glad that you came on and helped us with it. So thank you.
Of course, pleasure. Thanks, guys. Right. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you guys in the next one.